Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Arab, Muslim leaders slam Israel's war on Gaza but shy away from punitive steps. Dubai Air Chiefs Summit, sponsored by Israeli firm, avoids discussing strikes as Hamas war rages. Israel latest, fighting surrounds hospitals as ceasefire urged. Palestinians in Lebanon disappointed that Hezbollah won't escalate. Walking to an unknown fate, Gaza war reopens old wounds for Lebanon's Palestinians. Arab, Muslim leaders slam Israel's war on Gaza but shy away from punitive steps. RFI. The joint summit of the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, in Saudi Arabia highlighted regional divisions over how to respond to the war in Gaza. While some countries proposed threatening to disrupt oil supplies to Israel and severing economic and diplomatic ties, others rejected the proposal. The final declaration called for a decisive resolution from the UN Security Council to halt Israel's aggression and demanded an end to weapons sales to Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected international calls for a ceasefire and ruled out a role for the Palestinian Authority in post-war Gaza. Dubai Air Chiefs Summit, sponsored by Israeli firm, avoids discussing strikes as Hamas war rages. Yahoo! Leaders of the world's top air forces met in the UAE to discuss almost everything except Israel's current airstrikes. The discussions at the Dubai International Air Chiefs Conference, held ahead of the biennial Dubai Air Show this week, shows the delicate balancing act the Federation of Seven Sheikdoms faces. The UAE maintains diplomatic ties with Israel despite widespread and growing anger in the Arab world over the civilian casualties from Israel's offensive in the Gaza Strip against Hamas. Israel latest, fighting surrounds hospitals as ceasefire urged. Yahoo! Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has rejected the possibility of a ceasefire or the restoration of the Palestinian Authority to govern the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the United Nations has accused Israeli forces of increasing their attacks on Gaza hospitals. The WHO has lost communication with Al-Shifa Hospital, which is said to be surrounded by Israeli troops. Israel has denied this and claims that there is safe passage for anyone who wants to leave the hospitals. Hezbollah has confirmed that it is increasing the size and frequency of its attacks on Israel using heavier weaponry, including missiles and drones. The US and European Union both designate Hamas, the group currently ruling Gaza, as a terrorist organization. However, Iran supports both Hezbollah and Hamas. Palestinians in Lebanon disappointed that Hezbollah won't escalate. Al Jazeera. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has said that the war with Israel will be long and victory will take years. His message fell short for many Palestinians in Sabra and Shatila, a Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon, who wanted him to open up the war completely. Some Palestinians in Lebanon believe that Hezbollah should take the fight to Israel first. Nasrallah is backed by Iran, and it is thought that he is considering his domestic situation. Walking to an unknown fate, Gaza war reopens old wounds for Lebanon's Palestinians. Financial Times. The recent Israeli bombardment of Gaza and forced displacement of hundreds of thousands of people has brought back painful memories for many Palestinians who were displaced during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The 1948 war led to the mass displacement and dispossession of around 700,000 Palestinians, an event remembered by Palestinians as the Nakba, meaning catastrophe. This event has deeply affected generations of Palestinians, who still live with the trauma today. Since 1948, around 5 million Palestinian refugees have been displaced and scattered around the Middle East. Many Palestinians in Lebanon have remained stateless, with limited access to state-provided services and restricted employment opportunities. Palestinians living in refugee camps in Lebanon often face poverty and overcrowding. The recent conflict in Gaza has been especially distressing for Palestinians in Lebanon, a country also affected by war and economic crisis. For Palestinians, the bombardment and siege of Gaza is another painful chapter in a long history of displacement and violence. There are concerns that the recent displacement of Palestinians from Gaza could be a repeat of the Nakba. U.S. does not want to see firefights in Gaza hospitals, Sullivan says. Reuters. The United States has urged Israeli forces to avoid fighting inside hospitals in Gaza, as this puts the lives of innocent civilians, including patients, at risk. White House National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, stated that the U.S. has had active consultations with the Israeli Defense Forces on this matter. Israeli forces have said that they are prepared to evacuate babies from Gaza's largest hospital, but officials from Palestine have said that people are still trapped inside and that 2 newborns have died due to a power outage caused by the fighting. Sullivan also stated that Hamas is using hospitals for command and control, weapons storage, and housing fighters, which is a violation of the laws of war. The U.S. is also continuing to evacuate American citizens from Gaza. Gaza war inflicts catastrophic damage on infrastructure and economy. Reuters. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, the recent Israeli assault on Gaza has led to the destruction of over 41,000 housing units and damage to over 222,000 housing units. In addition, more than half of Gaza's hospitals and almost two-thirds of primary health care centers are out of service, and over 50% of educational facilities have been damaged. Water consumption has fallen by 90%, and food stocks are running out. The war has also caused the loss of around 390,000 jobs and is expected to increase poverty in Gaza by between 20% and 45%. Billionaires are teaming up for pro-Israel, anti-Hamas media drive, report. Al Jazeera. A billionaire real estate tycoon in the United States is rallying support for a high-dollar media campaign to boost Israel's image and demonize the Hamas armed group amid global pro-Palestinian solidarity protests. The campaign, called Facts for Peace, is seeking million-dollar donations from dozens of the world's biggest names in media, finance, and technology. The goal is to draw $50 million in private donations, paired with a matching contribution from a Jewish charity. The U.S. is Israel's strongest global ally, providing it with billions of dollars of aid annually and staunch diplomatic backing. Israel says Palestinian Authority in current form should not run Gaza. Reuters. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has expressed doubts about the Palestinian Authority's current form taking charge of the Gaza Strip. Israel has launched a full-scale invasion of Gaza, aiming to destroy Palestinian group Hamas. While Israel has not specified who should rule the enclave once the conflict is over, it has stated that it will maintain overall security. U.S. Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken has said that the Gaza administration must be unified with the West Bank, parts of which are run by the Palestinian Authority. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has stated that the PA could play a future role in governing Gaza. However, Netanyahu has indicated that he does not want the current PA rulers to have free reign in Gaza. Netanyahu cited the PA's school syllabus, which he claims fuels hatred of Israel, and its policy of giving salaries to families of Palestinians imprisoned in Israel as reasons for this stance. Palestinian officials say that over 11,000 Gazans have been killed by Israeli strikes over the past 5 weeks, including around 40% children. The occupied West Bank, divided by faith, united by fear. New York Times. As Moshe Feiglin pulls up to his settlement in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, he points to an 8-foot-tall concrete slab blocking the middle of the road. "That's new," he says. He slowly drives around it and nods his head to more security barriers and heavily armed soldiers peering from behind the entrance gate. "And so is that and that and that." In the past month, his settlement, Tico, has turned into an army base, he says, which goes against his personal code. "I don't have rock-proof glass on my car windows," he says. "I don't want rock-proof glass. But you have to understand what people are preparing for," he adds. "They are preparing for 200 terrorists to come in." Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Hex, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today, we delve into the ongoing conflict in Gaza and its far-reaching consequences. Arab and Muslim leaders have condemned Israel's war on Gaza, but have shied away from taking punitive measures. While some proposed disrupting oil supplies and severing ties with Israel, others rejected the idea. The United Nations has accused Israeli forces of targeting hospitals in Gaza, while the United States has urged Israel to avoid fighting inside healthcare facilities. The war has caused catastrophic damage to Gaza's infrastructure and economy, with thousands of housing units destroyed and healthcare and educational facilities out of service. Billionaires are teaming up for a pro-Israel media campaign to boost Israel's image and demonize Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has expressed doubts about the Palestinian Authority's ability to govern Gaza, citing their school curriculum and policy of giving salaries to families of Palestinians imprisoned in Israel. Meanwhile, the occupied West Bank remains divided by faith and united by fear, as settlements turn into heavily fortified army bases. In summary, the conflict in Gaza continues to escalate with devastating consequences. The international community is divided on how to respond, with Arab and Muslim leaders struggling to find a unified approach. Meanwhile, Israel's actions have faced condemnation from the United Nations and the United States, who have called for the protection of civilians and healthcare facilities. The war has caused immense damage to Gaza's infrastructure and economy, leaving its people in dire conditions. And in an effort to shape the narrative, billionaires are rallying support for a media campaign to support Israel and vilify Hamas. The situation in the occupied West Bank remains tense, with increased security measures and fear of potential attacks. Now, I turn to you, my esteemed audience. What are your thoughts on this ongoing conflict? How do you think the international community should respond? Let's open the floor for discussion and questions. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.